So Huawei's P30 Pro is finally officially a thing, and even though last year's P20 Pro absolutely blew us out of the water, a lot has changed in that year, and the P30 Pro makes some significant improvements on last year's handset. So what exactly has changed up? What has improved for the P30 Pro? Well, let's do a full side-by-side comparison now, and don't forget, for more on the latest and greatest mobile tech, to poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So first up, stick the two side by side, and basically the P30 Pro looks like a more beefier, bigger version of the P20 Pro. The all-new 2019 model is a 6.47-inch beast, compared with the 6.1-incher from last year, which now seems quite modest and compact. However, there's not actually a massive difference in terms of the actual dimensions. That's because the Huawei P20 Pro had a big, thick, chunky bezel beneath the display. That was, of course, to house the actual physical fingerprint sensor, whereas now in the P30 Pro you get an in-display fingerprint sensor, just like you did on the Mate 20 series. It's an optical in-display fingerprint sensor here on the P30 Pro, so again, just like the Mate series. That unfortunately means it only captures a 2D image, but it definitely seems an improvement even on the Mate range. It's very fast, it's very responsive, and it seems nice and accurate too. The P30 Pro also sports a more modest dewdrop notch up top as well, compared with the slightly more chunky effort on the P20 Pro. So that display really does pretty much fill the front of the phone. Flip around to the back and you get the same curved glass design, still absolutely beautiful, even though it's not a massive evolution on last year's P20 Pro. The design of the P30 Pro is once again inspired by lights. You get these lovely gradient designs, you get a choice of 5 colours on the new P30 Pro, and they all look pretty stunning. And the good news is the dust and water resistance has been slightly boosted for the P30 Pro as well. It's IP68 resistant compared with the P20 Pro, which was IP67. Now what about that display tech? Well, both the P20 Pro and the P30 Pro sport an OLED panel, so you can expect nice punchy colours. But if you dive into the display settings, you could fiddle around with that anyway. Get a more natural output if that's your bag. It's a full HD plus resolution on both these smartphones as well. You don't get any quad HD plus visuals here on the P30 Pro, but again, that's absolutely fine for just viewing pictures and checking out a movie. You get full HDR support, of course, again, so once again, you can enjoy really nice contrast levels and really rich, natural looking colours when you're watching a Netflix movie. It's a slightly more elongated display on the P30 Pro though, probably helped along by the fact that it doesn't have that big chunky bottom bezel. It's a 19.5:9 compared with the old 18.7:9 of the P20 Pro. Now as for the actual software running the show, well, the P20 Pro, certainly your review model of the P20 Pro, is still running Android Oreo with Emotion UI 8 on top. Meanwhile, the P30 Pro, of course, as you would imagine, sports the latest Android 9 with the button Emotion UI 9.1 slapped there. A lot of the features are very similar on the two smartphones. You get Face Unlock, for instance, to complement the fingerprint sensors, and you get some nice gesture controls on both these smartphones as well. The P30 Pro does sport the latest Emotion UI features, such as, for instance, the digital well-being, which is kind of like a nanny type thing, but can also be used as a parental control mode. And of course, you get Huawei's One Hop feature as well, which basically allows you to quickly transfer files with a Huawei MateBook laptop. In terms of the performance, the P30 Pro is, again, of course, an upgrade. You get Huawei's latest Kirin 980 chipset slapped in there, whereas the older P20 Pro uses the Kirin 970. And there's more RAM in the P30 Pro as well, 8 gigs compared with 6. Thankfully, the P20 Pro is still nice and silky smooth for your everyday actions, but the P30 Pro definitely seems quicker at loading up apps and such forth. Both are absolutely fine for gaming though. The P20 Pro is definitely helped along by that GPU Turbo feature, now GPU Turbo 2.0 on the P30 Pro. What this does, it just helps to maintain a nice, smooth frame rate when you're playing some of the most popular games out there, such as PUBG Mobile. What about the storage? Well, once again, the P30 Pro is an incremental upgrade. It actually doubles the amount of storage found in the P20 Pro from 128 gigs to 256. And the battery tech is an upgrade as well. The 4000 mAh cell found in the P20 Pro has only been incrementally updated to a 4200 mAh cell in the P30 Pro, but you do get Huawei's latest version of Supercharge packed into the P30 Pro as well, 40 watts compared with the older 22.5 watts. It's definitely substantially quicker, and of course the P30 Pro supports wireless charging at 15 watts as well, and even gives you a bit of reverse wireless charging so you can power up other Qi standard devices. But it's the camera tech where the P30 Pro definitely makes massive strides. The tri-lens camera tech on the P20 Pro was fantastic, but on the P30 Pro it's been upgraded in a number of ways. You once again get a 40 megapixel primary lens, whereas on the P20 Pro it was an RGB lens with an f1.8 aperture. You now get Huawei's Super Spectrum lens here on the P30 Pro with an f1.6 even wider aperture. And that's got a bit of optical image stabilization as well to really help out for when it's sucking in all of that light to give you a nice detailed photo. The actual Super Spectrum tech apparently can also help to suck in more light. It's an RYYB lens instead of an RGB lens. So again, you can expect more natural looking colours in your photos and nice bright shots at daylight and hopefully brighter shots at nighttime too. As for the secondary lens, that's also changed. On the P20 Pro, it was just a basic 20 megapixel monochrome lens f1.6. It didn't add an ultra wide angle view like the one on the P30 Pro does. And you still get an 8 megapixel telephoto lens here on the P30 Pro, same as last year's P20 Pro. However, it now gives you a 5 times optical zoom thanks to the Periscope design. And that's compared with the 3 times optical zoom found on the P20 Pro. And yes, that's got some optical image stabilization slapped in it again. And while the P20 Pro stops there, the P30 Pro continues with a 4th time of flight lens, which can be used to accurately measure distances between you and your subject. Great news for those portrait shots to give you a nice accurate bokeh style effect in the background, and also good for your AR purposes as well. Now on the P30 Pro, the general camera interface is the same as the P20 Pro, but you get a few extra bonus features thrown in there as well. You can once again take great looking portrait shots with a fantastic range of funky effects to play around with. And of course there's that long exposure night mode as well, which was introduced on the P20 series. Hopefully it should be even better now on the P30 Pro thanks to the wider aperture and of course that super spectrum tech. Unlike the P20 Pro before it, you can shoot 4K resolution video on the P30 Pro, but the image stabilization certainly seems to be a lot better. Flip around to the front and that 24 megapixel selfie snapper on the P20 Pro has been upgraded to a 32 megapixel effort here on the P30 Pro. You can once again shoot great looking portrait shots, and yes, you do get features such as this new Super HDR on that front facing P30 Pro camera as well, which can also be used on the rear camera. That just helps to give you an even more balanced shot in those tricky lighting conditions, driven by of course a good bit of AI action. So that in a nutshell is how the P30 Pro improves on last year's P20 Pro. As you can see, several evolutions here and there in the hardware as well as the software. So definitely let us know what you think down below. If you've got the P20 Pro, are you tempted to spunk out the cash and upgrade to the P30 Pro? Definitely be great to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest mobile tech. Cheers everyone, love you!